Welcome to the Coaching Edge podcast with your co-hosts, Dr. Steve Jeffs and Erwin de Grave. Each episode, we bring you expert guests and transformative coaching insights. Let's dive in.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to a new episode of the Coaching Edge podcast with your co-host, Dr. Steve Jeffs, and myself, Erwin de Grave. And today we have the pleasure to talk to Carly Anderson. Hello, Carly. How are you doing?
Hi, Erwin. Nice to see you.
Yeah, and hello, Steve, of course. Welcome as
Steve.
well. So, Carly, we could try to introduce yourself, but I'm 100% sure you know yourself much better than we do. So, who is Carly? What does she do in coaching, and how did she got in coaching?
So 3 questions.
Yes.
Okay. Who am I? I have no clue.
Okay.
Really, I don't know. Existentially, that always feels like a existential question. I'm looking at a baby photo of myself. I have one baby photo that was hand painted on by my godfather, my uncle. And I see the innocence in that face. It's in my line of vision above. And I don't look at it very often, but as soon as you said, "Who are you?" I went, oh, if I could be that innocent child that had the world just have that innocence, it would be beautiful. I have a butterfly on my wall. If you saw my office, it'd tell you a lot about me. I have a Chinese New Year decoration and the money thing, and the next one coming up in February. I have all of that. I have a monkey. I have penguins. I have a praying, meditating cat. So I have photos of places I've been that I've taken photos. So I don't know who that is, but that's a part of the being of me. What was your second question?
So you're a coach. What do you do specifically in the coaching world?
Oh my gosh. Well, I started 28 years ago, which is ridiculous, and it was my third profession. Can't believe that. I'm a business person first, and I never thought I'd be a coach. That was weird to me. So maybe to answer that question, I'll say my first career, and these were not linear. These were highly challenging personal and professional leaps. The first one, I was in the advertising industry in the media planning department, and I found that fascinating because I learned about psychographics and demographics, and I started to learn about the psychology of people that are my early 20s. I studied that then. As I was working, I was always studying at night college, always, because I just found that fascinating. And then I did a lot of personal development, and I went into a consulting firm of my own, a boutique consulting firm, creating corporate strategies for companies around their strategic plan, vision, values, and I had a few employees. And I found that very successful, but not really satisfying because there were no results coming past. Well, yes, we all understand corporate storytelling. It was really great, but now what? And then a colleague of mine I was staffing in the back of a personal development program in Australia, and he told me he was bringing coach training to Australia. And I vividly remember him saying, "What are you talking about? I sports coaching?" Because I'm a huge sports fan. I went, no, it's this thing called coaching from America, and I'm bringing it, licensed it. And I went, okay. He said, well, I'll send you the information when I have it. And I went, sure. So 4 months later, he did, and it was good timing. And so I did the course, and I ended up selling well, first of all, I said, what is coaching? He said, well, it's something that helps people get better, and I think you'd be a great coach. I went, Tony, I'm a businesswoman. I'm not a people person. I remember saying that to him, and he went, oh, I think you are. I said, I'm not. I am a businesswoman. And well, he sort of laughed, and God bless his soul, he passed away, unfortunately. But I really didn't think I was ever going to do coaching. But then I saw the results it gave on the back end of the corporate strategy, that it actually created a way for the things we did with the consulting to actually be implemented. And that's really was exciting to me. And so I did a lot of coaching in around corporate business executive coaching in my first 15 years of coaching. And the last 10 years, I've really, or whatever that is, But since 2012, 13, I started to do a lot more on supporting the professionalism of coaching and less on the actual coaching. Because, you know, you get to a point where you've got to decide what is it that my passion is and where am I now? And I do like doing coaching, but I do also enjoy mentoring and supporting the professionalism of coaching. And that's where I do a lot of my work now.
Interesting.
What is it about the professionalism of coaching that speaks to you?
Well, you have a degree in psychology, and you had a bar to entry to do that. You can't call yourself a psychologist, if I'm correct, without having a psychology degree. Anybody
Correct.
can call themselves a coach. We don't have a bar to entry. You can't call yourself a coach. You can call yourself a sports coach. You can call yourself any type. So for me, advocating for the core competencies of ICF, and I know there are others in the world in MCC, but you know, I'm really familiar with and stuck with the ICF core competencies, a code of ethics, a standard, a structure, a professional business-oriented approach, so that we actually are a proper profession, even though we're not technically. That's important to me for some reason, has been for a long time.
Yeah, that the businesswoman speaking, not just being all fluff and there's things to do. We got to do it properly. There's a reason we're doing it, and the discipline that I hear, and the businesswoman to make sure those things happen is that part of the connection?
Yeah, for a lot of people, structure creates stress or creates limitation. For me, structure creates opportunity, because once the things are in place that create structures for organizations or for myself, I have more freedom, because first of all, I feel more confident that I know what I'm doing. And every coaching session needs a structure. Otherwise, why are we here? We're just having a great conversation. Steve, you said right at the beginning, before we even started recording, what the purpose of this is. Yay, you. Great book, starting with purpose. And a lot of people don't think of having structure and the purpose of why they're even doing. They just think, oh, I'm going to have great conversations. And well, for what purpose? So structure creates, to me, consistent results available. Also, things that I don't have to think about because I've got structures in place open up other opportunities for me to be creative.
Mhm. I want to challenge you for a minute, if I may.
Oh,
Why
goody.
does coaching need to be something like a psychologist? An entrepreneur doesn't have to need a bar. They don't need to. A business person doesn't have to. So why does coaching needs to? Uh, What's what I hear that coaching should have, like psychologists, like a lawyer, but a business person doesn't need to. A programmer doesn't need to. He just learns about it and say, I'm a program. So why is it so important that coaching needs to have one if other professions don't?
Great question. I would say about 25 years ago, uh, the Colorado psychologists in the association sued ICF. And they weren't the only ones. And I could be wrong with that, but I think it was pretty sure it was Denver, Colorado. And they said, you don't have a right to talk about people's insides as coaches. That's our job. We are the ones who do that. And it was really why ICF really had to create more boundaries around why they do what they do with people. Because I mean, and now people do trauma-informed coaching. I'm challenged by that. I've had some light training in that, but you have to me, be really aware of what you're doing with human psyches to be able to work with that.
Mm.
Because the range of coaching can be from anything from deep transformational to tactical. Sure, on the surface, if you're just doing tactical strategic work, which to me is really blah, I don't want to just do that. But if you want people to actually make a difference, change, shift the way they do things in life, in business, then we're dealing with their insides, their beliefs, their values. And that is where I think a lot of this comes from, Erwin, is because we're dealing with people's psychology. We're not just dealing with the what, we're dealing with the who.
Mm.
I don't know what, Steve, your thoughts too, because I know you're the psychologist amongst us, I believe.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I guess my first response is I would actually challenge Erwin's challenge.
Okay.
You know, kind of yes, anyone can call themselves an entrepreneur, but there's a phrase called a wantrepreneur that's showing up where people are like, "Yay, I'm an entrepreneur because I'm self-employed." Well, I love Kiyosaki's distinction in the, cash flow quadrant is a business owner is different than self-employed. Um, and so there's a lot of entrepreneurs out there that are self-employed. It's not entrepreneurial thinking. It's a job that they happen to be their own boss. And so where I'm going with this is I think there are results and outcomes that help you justify the definition of the label of an entrepreneur. Same with a business owner or a business person. Are you delivering results in business? Well, if you're not, can you really call yourself a business person? And so, from my perspective around coaching, where it is intangible or softly tangible or hard to be described, the subjective, the inside, how do we know if we're doing what we're supposed to be doing? And I think to me, that's the essence of credentialing, of standards, of having a bar that says, look, if you're not doing this, then you're not one of them. And that's the result connecting to the name, to have some realness to what we're doing. That's kind of the view that I'm holding in this moment.
So why is it then that it's taking so long that coaching has that bar, like a psychology, like a lawyer, like a doctor? Why does it take so long? Nobody.
Bit hard to go backwards and start. I mean, I don't know. I think that's a good question and probably outside the scope of my
Hmm.
knowledge about. What I do know is that I've had clients, people that I know, coaching, mentoring clients who've been sued in the past, even in the last few years by like one guy got sued because and he wanted to know where he could go. And I said, the ethics department at ICF is a really good place to start. Fabulous. They are fabulous. And the accusation was you didn't deliver what I thought you said you could deliver, and I made decisions based on what you told me, and it cost me, and I won't say the amount, a lot of money, and I'm suing you for that. That's why we need to have continually, I don't know whether there may be a government imposed. I think it's going to be hard to do, but it may eventually become that. Who knows? I live in a country that is full of weird stuff right now with political and government stuff that I can't explain. So you never know. But I just think we need to also be aware of our own responsibilities as professionals. What are we doing? How are we doing it? Are we masterful? Have we done our homework? Do we know what we're talking about? Are we continually upgrading our skills professionally and personally so that we can be the best person we can be? And we can also speak to opportunities when there could be, someone says, I want to employ you as my coach to help me build my business. And I'm really seeking your advice because you've built a business from scratch and you've done really successfully. You got to know that was my first coaching engagement because I was successful in building a business from nothing and to very successful very quickly. And they wanted to know how I did it. And I said, well, that's great, but I'm actually learning coaching now. And I want to practice my coaching skills, and I'm not here to do that. And it was really hard at first to say that because, of course, oh yeah, I can tell you how I did it. But to your point, Steve, my first trainings in personal development were all with Kiyosaki. I did all of my personal development with Money and You and Learning to Learn and Training to Train with Stephanie Burns and all these people. And it was really about business first and making sure you understood your role as a human being in relation to money and other things. We just always need to be aware of what we're delivering. And I do think through this framework, will it stand up in a court of law? Now, it wouldn't have bothered me if I still lived in Australia, but I've lived in America for 25 years. And I think differently because of that.
Yeah. I think that's a good answer. I've got perspectives. I think for your question, Erwin, coaching is new. And Carla, you're pointing to coaching the role of partnership that shows up, which is very important to have clarity about where responsibility lies, who's responsible for what, and of course, to manage and balance the power that emerges in the relational dynamic, which is a very gray, vague, unclear, often uncertain space. And so no other profession that I know is as vague as that. It's like I'm an expert, I've done the training, I've got the background, I've got the answers. In fact, you look at psychology and counseling, there's evidence, there's theories, there's all of this stuff behind them. And if people aren't doing what they've been trained, then they can't they can't deliver what's happening. And so I think this essence of protection, one, yes, but professionalism, two, but also safety for the clients. What are they buying? What can we promise? What can we not promise? And to be able to separate those, to hold the professional view of here's what I can deliver, here's how I can deliver it. And not to go into, well, I need a client. So yeah, I can do that. I can do whatever you need because that sort of drifts into nothingness at best and scariness at worst.
Yeah. Erwin, how do you not get sued?
What do you mean with that? Not get sued.
Not go to America.
Don't go to America. Well, if you're advising people, and it sounds like you deal with a lot of entrepreneurs or people or business that mergers and acquisitions and all that stuff where there could be lots and lots of money involved, what if you give them some advice and later they go, your advice was actually wrong. We made decisions based on that and we lost $1 billion. How do you prevent that from happening to you?
Well, first of all, that's what Steve just mentioned as well, is what your initial communication and your initial agreement that you set up. So saying that, hey, I am here, I can give you tips, I can give you advice, I can give you some direction. But at the end, the decision is yours. And you need to evaluate what I bring to the table that you see if that makes fit. It's the same when like investing in the stock market. There's a lot of there. What is it? So it is really saying from, and that comes really what I learned also from the management consultancy where I come from, is really saying, hey, I am here to help you, but the responsibility is yours. Whatever I can tell you or advise you, that is how I see it. But if you do it or don't do it, that's your decision, not mine. And it's very important on the legal environment that you make this very, very clear. That you say when from the beginning, and that is what also happened in the coaching, and then when you do your chemistry call, sample call, and you decide that the clients, as a good coach, you present at least that I would do is present them a contract. Say, hey, this is a contract. These are the legal things to make sure that you understand and your sound of mind that you step in that relationship or in this relationship knowing what is your responsibility and what's my responsibility. That is crucial, and it's not only in consultancy, advising, coaching. That is actually in everything in life. You need to be very clear if you go in what kind of relationship that you have clear. Okay, what are my responsibilities? What are your responsibilities? And that's an agreement getting to. Now, it could be that someone say, "Well, I do not want to sign this." Well, then you say, "Well, I'm sorry, I cannot help you."
How clear was that, Steve? Huh?
I
Listening to
love
you.
it.
That's what we want every coach to be able to do, and they don't.
But the question is, why don't they do it?
Because they fear there's self-image. A
No,
lot of
because
it, I think, is I feel that I can deliver, and I want to prove to you that I can. I think I'm rewriting my 10 characteristics of MCC skill level right now, and I'm really sort of doing trust, the characteristic of trust. And one of the things I realize is a lot of coaches want to prove their expertise and knowledge and how good they are through their what they do and know. and they don't actually have the capability or want to have the capability to say, hey, I don't know what's right for you. I have experiences, but as a coach, I actually first and foremost need to draw out your self-knowledge and your wisdom. And then if there's anything else you need extra, I could possibly give you some ideas. But honestly, if most coaches are default too easily to taking their coaching hat off and putting on their consulting hat and their expert hat, and they don't have muscles built in the gym, metaphorical coaching gym, they haven't built their ability to trust the coaching process, to actually have these conversations about what is coaching and what isn't, what's my role, what's your role. I hear it all the time in senior coaches. They don't want to do it because
I
they're
be-
about people, not about business.
I believe there's another issue, and certainly with those that suddenly start in coaching, just, oh, I got a client, and if I say no, I don't have the client, I don't have that income that comes related to that. So they think I need to take that on because it's maybe a first or a second paying client. And that's where they make the mistake, where they really need to say, and that's what you refer to as well, is ethics. And that you basically say, where is my own ethics? Where is the ethics of coaching? Where is my own ethics? And and then sometimes you get that survival mode coming. So, but I really need this, and I need to, and well, forget the contract. Let's do it. And then where's sometimes the problem start.
Yeah, I would position that slightly differently. I'm definitely aligned with both of you. Erwin, what I see is less about the commercial aspects of the relationship and more about the relational aspects of the relationship. So coach is not saying I can't say no because I'll not have a client, but I can't say no because I'll upset the person in front of me and it will damage the relationship. But it's that relational
That's right.
side where I see people getting stuck. And Carly, to your point, um, coaching partnership is weird. You know, where else do I, as a client, go to an expert to not get their expert advice?
Yeah.
It does not compute. And and so I've seen it. Like clients will create a lot of relational pressure for the coach to to sit in the expert role. And without practice, without trust in self, trust in process, trust in the client, it's really easy for me to give the client what the client wants, which is for me to look impressive, which also feeds my ego and feels kind of really good. And then I can walk away kind of strutting tall, but it doesn't deliver in the same way as when we can set the boundaries, have the structure, and bring the protection for what's going to do the work.
Yeah. Beautiful.
I see
Yeah.
it a little bit different, but
Well, that was
because
the first thing you said today, that, what are you passionate about? I love seeing things different.
yeah,
Football was the first thing, actually.
yeah, but because for me, at the end, as I mentioned before we started recording, for me, coaching is a tool. And if I sit down, but that's also what you need to make clear from the beginning. So if I work with a client, when I work with a client, it's very clear, okay, I'm here to help you. And if I see it's the right moment to give some advice or some tips, I make this clear. But for me, it's like having my toolbox, and I got a lot of different tools based on knowledge and experience. And for me, is it helping the client? And you need to be very clear from each one. Where do you enter? So I generally don't enter as a coach. I enter more as a mentor in that sense, and I use coaching, which is different than you go enter as a coach. Is a completely different entrance that you say, well, I need to use tool and I need to use this in the right ethical and what is recommended in coaching to do this. But I come from an elder enter point, so I come in as an advisor, as a mentor, and I use coaching, which is then used differently.
That's fair. I think that's a great distinction. And again, you're honest about it. Is I'm first and foremost about consulting, is what I perceive. I'm going to be a mentor consultant. And if I use some of the tools of coaching, I'm not actually in actually using the coaching structure. I'm using a coaching tool as a tool to ask questions, make observations. The other point you made, I think, is very, very important, is most people in general and in helping professions want to help. That's the problem. They actually don't realize the best thing to do is to shut up longer and see what more can the client has, because the amount of times I've been quiet and the client says more and they realize they actually know more than they thought they knew because no one had given them the space. I don't need to intervene with an idea or something, because to do so would be my ego. It would mean proving I know something, but they've already got it. They got the thing, and I could never have come up with that thing because it's uniquely them. So that is, you're right. I come in as a coach first and foremost. I also mentor because I love mentoring, but that's a different context than when I'm a coach. I want to challenge myself to be in the coaching gym. I'm not in the mentoring gym. I am in the coaching gym, and I'm using those skills and those weights and that methodology because I know it works. I also know mentoring works. I also know as a consultant how to be effective, and I'm probably not the typical consultant because I did therapy before I really got into consulting. Between advertising and marketing into my consulting firm, I went through an existential crisis once only, not. Um, and I started to understand how to listen. And the biggest gift I was ever given is my therapist. She had said to me, you're not done with, you think you're done with therapy? No, you're going to now, I really recommend you sit in a group and shut up for 6 months and don't say anything. She was a little kinder than that, but not much, because she was American and in Australia. And she was like, no, I think you should just sit there and listen. I went, oh, what? She said, no, I think you'll learn so much by just listening now. You've done your work, you've got enough, you understand, you know, you've been heard and all that, and we're working on that. Oh my gosh, that was pre-coaching. And the biggest gift I got was, and so I'd go into consulting and they'd say, so what can you deliver? I go, great, why am I here? Purpose. First of all, let me ask you a few questions so I can answer that question. Why am I even here talking to you? And I'm the only woman in the room, and I'm quite young at this point. And, you know, they sort of, I'm like, oh, okay. So, you know, here's our, so now I'm listening, learning, and I'm being responsive. Now I can make the best opportunity for a contract, an offering. It's underestimated how much listening and asking those questions and using a coaching methodology, even though not coaching session, but a coaching methodology in every aspect of life. I'm talking to the converted, I know.
Well, I think this is a great conversation because we haven't used the term yet, but this is also a discussion about leadership. As leaders in organizations, you know, how we show up, there's this advice perspective. This is I have the answers view. It's quicker for me to tell you what I think I want to happen than it is to create space to listen. And one of the things that really strikes me in this conversation is, and I see it all the time, often the question that people ask is not the question they want the answer for. And the words that come out, you know, when we answer them literally, and we see this all the time, you know, I've answered the question, yeah, but it's not the answer I'm looking for. We can still see it. It's unsatisfying for the person who has the initial question. But to take the time to listen, to take the time to ask the questions in a coaching context to get clear on the topic, to spend some time getting clear on the topic, what it means for the client, what success looks like, how we know they'll have it. You know, all of those sorts of questions are way more important than just coaching because it helps us create alignment. And then once we're aligned on where we're going, now we can start to look at what are the solutions to move forwards. And I think that's the step that gets forgotten. And that's part of what I'm hearing from both of you is that, hey, when we do this, we go further.
Alignment, is it?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm reminded of, I had some good role models when before even coaching, when I was still working full time in advertising industry. He was young at the time, man came in to be the CEO of the second largest advertising agency in Australia. And I went to work for him. And I was out of my depth, by the way. It was terrible. It was not a good choice on my part. But I learned a lot by watching him. He came in and he was there to really improve the business. And one of the first things that he did, and he was unlike anybody I'd encountered, and certainly I'm a massive sports fan too, football, especially, and I'd seen, people yelling at each other and doing stuff. And he came in and he would say, I'm not changing anything for the next 6 at least months. I'm going to be asking a lot of questions. I'm going to be doing a lot of observations, and then I'll let you know my decisions. Other people come in and they fire people straight away and they reorganize and do all of that. He didn't. And it took him 10 months. I was in many meetings with him where you would see him, he'd just be sitting back there. And maybe he was 45 at the time. I don't know. I'm going to say that. Maybe 50. He would sit there and you'd just tell he was processing everything around. Now, I don't know anything about his background. And I had another boss like that, a man as well. I had an incredible woman boss who was also very, very thoughtful. And these are pre-coaching, nothing to do with coaching. I don't know where they got that from, but I realized in hindsight, they were using listening skills at a level that I didn't perceive in the world others in business were. Especially I was going into organizations where we need to explain our values and vision. I go, well, what is that thing on the wall called a value? What is that thing called integrity? How do you take that off the wall and live it and behave it? And they go, oh yeah, I'd say, they go, no, we just need results. I go, yes, and living through your values is about getting results. And they don't listen, and they didn't listen. And we know there's lots of books written on the most successful CEOs and that, how they listen a lot and they wait and take in information. A lot of people sort of have coaching skills but they just don't know how to put it all into a framework like we do if we choose to use coaching. So yeah, leadership is important. But again, I think the fundamental thing is, are they willing to listen and learn before they act? And when they act in ways that make sense to themselves and they can explain it to other people. Don't care whether other people like it or not, but it makes sense why they did what they did. To them, at least. I mean, I'm watching all the people being fired in America here right now in the United States. It's that time of year where the American football playoffs are on. And after the regular season, it's quite a joke, but it's true. Last Monday, week ago, is firing day. Who's going to be fired of all the coaches who didn't perform because they didn't get into the playoffs? Or in one case, Hall of Fame coach got fired from one of the most prominent football organizations. And we all went, what? And you just see people making decisions based on different criteria, but they can't, it's gut or it's reactive. And is it considered? Are you listening? Why is this happening? And I think we have as coaches that ability to really understand and seek to understand first before we decide whether what we're going to say, how we're going to respond. That takes practice.
Takes practice, or is an ability that you have from being small?
God, no.
Well, the example that you gave about the CEO in advertising, he never learned about coaching, but he had the ability of listening. That's what I mean. So
but maybe he went through therapy like me.
Or maybe
I
not.
don't know. I learned listening through therapy. Really. Oh, and doing Robert Kiyosaki's course.
Let's also be really clear that the profession of coaching may be young, but the skills of coaching are not.
Ah, yes, beautiful.
So Socrates, Aristotle, all the way back to the philosophers of old, well, what were they doing? Well, they were asking questions and they were listening to the answers. They were creating the space for discourse, to explore where truth lay, what was real, what was not, what was going on. In group, to have a discussion, a dialogue, to have argument for the sake, not just of disagreement, but different perspectives so that we can find what is reality and what's going on. All of that's coach-like. All of that's what we do with our clients in coaching is we create that space where they can start to explore things differently, where our listening allows them to listen to themselves differently, and to build their awareness, to challenge their own thoughts, and for us to kind of prompt that space where they can go to the places they didn't think that they could, but they can do it with us.
Yeah. Yeah. So true.
So until now, really interesting. But Carly, if we look now where we are and if you look a little bit in the future, where do you see things going? And certainly in the world of coaching and what surrounds it.
Well, flavor of the month right now is AI, as we all know. It reminds me of when computers were it's like computers are going to take over people's jobs. And it did. But what did it do? Created a whole bunch of new jobs. So yes, a lot of people in the short term were pained because they weren't able to. Some people are not able to retool in their lifetime because of their means and where they are and what happens. I feel like we're going through the same right now with AI. Is really truly AI has been around for a long time. It's just how do we use technology to be maximize efficiency and productivity. Now it's going into what AI, conversational AI, and how do we use it. My learning this year is all about AI. That's my chosen focus. I'm really immersed, just starting, but by the end of this year, I'm going to be like really comfortable with a lot of knowledge and how to use it in different ways. That's my objective. Where that ends up, and maybe it will be like computers taking over all of the jobs, it'll just mean that new things are created we can't even perceive right now. Like I became a coach. I had no clue that profession even existed. It didn't exist before I became one. I was the first coach training ever offered in Australia in 1998. It was only offered 3 years earlier in the United States. I feel like we don't know yet what's going to emerge out of all of this. And beyond AI, I mean, we see in the movies always, I love Star Trek. Years ago, Star Trek would show us having communications without having to put something to our ear. And I do enjoy the creative arts as a way to show us the future. I'm big into fantasy. I love Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and sort of Marvel cinematic universe and anywhere where they use superpowers and stuff, because I feel like they sort of somehow know a little bit about the future, and I don't know how it'll all unfold right now. All I know is, can you be authentic? Can you continue to be like learning and developing and growing in ways that feel congruent for me, for you? Authenticity by far to me is the most important. And I love stability in my life. So I know how to take care of my money. I know how to create reserves. I've done it over a long period of time. And so when you have financial reserves, you have options to retool and change. And that's why I feel it doesn't matter whether you put $1 or €1 or £1 away a week. It's the starting habits that create the opportunities for you to actually go, oh, this year I'm going to learn about AI. I don't care if I spend 10,000 or 20,000 or 5,000 or $2 on it. I'm going to do it because I have motivation. I found my purpose actually at the conference, Steve. I've got purpose now for why I'm going to learn about AI. Before that, I had no motivation. And I don't know, do you guys have any idea what's going to happen in the future of coaching? Because really at this point, I feel like we're at the computer tipping point of not quite knowing yet how it's all going to emerge into new professions or new opportunities at this point, and retooling.
I love your reference to superpowers. I think one thing that shows up for me is we're doing things that we shouldn't have to be doing. And I think that to me is what AI is spotlighting. So, well, actually, I can automate that. Well, hey, I can automate that. I can build a system that can automate that. Like, what are those things that we're doing that we now can delegate to a system And I think that's the edge that we're on. And then that raises the question of, well, if I've delegated all of these things that I don't have to be doing, to your question, like, well, who am I? What do I bring? What is the superpower that I hold that I can now access because I'm not burdened by all of these other things? And I think that's a wonderful inquiry. And I think that's the place where individually and collectively we're starting to kind of approach. Um, yeah, that's what shows up for me in terms of the opportunity of what's emerging.
For me, I think we're gonna go through, and I don't know how soon, but I think AI is going to accelerate this a certain filter in coaching.
So I can't
A
quite
certain
hear
a
you.
kind of a certain filtering.
Filtering. Okay.
So because you're talking about authenticity, um, there are more. So coaching is growing at a massive rate, and certainly people calling them coaches. Let me put it this way. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so, and it needs to get to a certain breaking point, and AI is going to be there in a certain sense too, because you're going to see the real coaches are not going to use AI in the coaching. I'm not saying about around coaching, like the marketing and that's something else and so on. And I believe that it needs to happen so that coaching can come where to you were saying in the beginning, where I challenge you about that, like a psychologist that needs to be a bar, that's the word, that is gonna come. I It needs to burn itself first before it's gonna be regulated.
Yeah, I know ICF are doing a lot of creative frameworks and all of that, and there's, all they're doing the work on that and research everything. The whole AI thing, I think, I mean, every time I get a transcript from my transcription service, it also sends me a whole bunch of summary and it gives me themes and it gives me possible questions and stuff. I find it fascinating. I have one person I know of, a colleague who does work in the college arena realm, and has used AI for coaching for students who, they haven't grown up with, they've grown up with thumbs that are digital. And how he's using AI with coaching, and he's the authentic presence that is managing, but he's able to reach 100 students using AI methodologies, but they come back to him for, but he said, I couldn't get to 100 students individually if without the use of AI, where they can actually go and they developed a program where they can have a counselor, a school, me or anybody available to them 24/7 because of the AI program. But they still need the authentic human to be there to support them as they manage that. Otherwise, as we know, information is just information. You don't use it, it's not going to help you. Or if you get overwhelmed with it because you're just trying to do too much and it's no help. You still need to have the people who are going to be able to hold that presence and understand the process. And you can work it, but you're probably still going to need the human to support you actually implement beyond what the AI can do. But I love that he's doing stuff like that. I would
Mm,
never know how to do that. And he's developed programs in all sorts of colleges now, universities.
absolutely. I think as Erwin said about coaching, AI is just a tool.
Yeah.
It is.
Yep.
So, Carly, this has been fantastic and engaging. And for those that would love to connect, learn more about your worldview or the work that you're doing to help, professionalize coaching, how can people connect with you?
Well, they can just go to my name. My website is my name, carlyanderson.com. And this year is the year of revising and updating and creating products. And I'm excited to do that. And, I've been part of also supporting, I was part of an international team, a small team that revised the minimum skills requirements for each of the credential levels this past 6 months. And anything they want to know, if they want support around, I mean, I'm not the ICF, but I've learned a lot over the years, and I can be accessed. Contact me through my website if you have any questions.
Well, thank you very much, Carly, for this entertaining and conversation that we had. Everybody else, thank you for listening in. And until the next episode, take care. Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to The Coaching Edge. Until next time, keep coaching and keep growing.